So let's move on to probably the last story that I'm going to cover, which is the ongoing tensions between the US, Israel, and Iran, which, there have already been tensions because Israel or Iran supports the Palestinian cause, and so do their rebel proxies. And, that obviously already has tensions between the two countries, considering if Israel, and more specifically Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz and some of the other cretins in their government had their way, they would just completely wipe out the Palestinians, at the very least ethnically cleanse them from what they think is their land. And so anyone who stands with them is, in their eyes, an enemy, and they already weren't exactly friends. But what really sparked this massive potential war is Israel engaging in a strike on Iran's soil and also within Beirut. So okay, this is the one that I'm thinking of. Hezbollah confirms a top commander was killed in Israeli strike in Beirut. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah confirmed Wednesday that Israel killed a top commander after a rare strike in Beirut. The Iran-backed group said earlier that Fuad Shakur was in the building during the attack on Tuesday, and they were searching for him in the rubble to determine his fate. Hezbollah's announcement came after an overnight strike in Tehran. Okay, why was that not coming up, dude? Why was this not coming up? I literally said Israel strikes Iran, and this shit made me think I was fucking crazy. I was like, God damn, I look stupid right now. It must have been the one in Damascus. But then I was like, no, I remember that was ages ago. This one was recent. That's why we're like in the situation that we're in. What the fuck? And here we are. Why did that not come up? Are they just, I'm not going to assume that it's a conspiracy, but it's a little weird. It's like, are they trying to memory hole that already? And, make everyone, oh, Iran's just ratcheting up tensions for no reason. It's not like Israel struck literally within their fucking capital. Tehran blames the country for killing of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Iranian capital. Iran has rejected Western calls not to retaliate against Israel for the killing in Tehran of Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas, late last month. Such demands lack political logic, are entirely contrary to the principles and rules of international law, and represent an excessive request. I'm not like a fucking Iran fan over here, but Jesus goddamn Christ, the hypocrisy and the audacity of the United States to support a country committing genocide, or at the very least, if you got a problem with that word, at the very least, an ethnic cleansing, killing massive amounts of civilians in the process. As they're doing that, that same country is like, you know what? We're just going to try and get you into a war with Iran because we know you'll never actually, do anything to stop supporting us no matter what we do. Every time you guys said, here's a red line, we crossed it, you guys didn't do fuck all. So they're like, here, come fight this war with Iran for us. And so they strike in the capital to kill one of the Hamas leaders. And I'm pretty sure they killed some civilians in the process. I'll report back as I kind of go through this article, make sure that that's not some misinformation that I'm spreading. But I'm pretty sure they killed some women and children in this attack in the capital of Iran. And the United States has the audacity to be like, oh, please don't launch another retaliatory attack. Can you imagine? Put the shoe on the other foot. Can you imagine if someone had struck inside the United States and then one of, that country that struck us, their friends, is like, okay, we know that was like not a cool thing to do, but please don't retaliate against them. It was just, misunderstanding, and they're just trying to be the mediator and smooth it all over. We'd be like, fuck no. We'd have planes in the air within 30 minutes to go bomb them back to the Stone Age. And, we have the audacity to be like, yeah, we're kind of just like, keep poking you and poking you and poking you. And now we punched you in the face, but you're the asshole if you fight back. It's just so fucking ridiculous, and this doesn't need to happen. We could tell Israel, hey, stop being a literal psychopathic country, or at least their leadership, and stop trying to stoke us into a war. We are not going to support you. But everyone in the U.S. government is so, like, they're either a literal Zionist themselves, or they're just so, bought by the Israel lobby, or they're just afraid to be called an anti-Semite. Whatever it might be, almost no one has the cojones to, come out and say, I'm not going to back this or go along with this. This is ridiculous. Israel keeps causing fiascos for us. And so here we are. We're sending more planes and like our carrier. Here it is. Our carrier strike group deploys to the Middle East. Lovely. When was this made? Secretary of Defense also announces deployment of guided missile submarine as Hamas appears to push back against resuming ceasefire negotiations. So basically, all they want, and Iran has said this too, is we want a guarantee of a ceasefire, and then we'll think about not striking back. And of course, who's getting in the way of that? Benjamin Netanyahu, because the moment that there's a ceasefire, Benjamin Netanyahu, if the war ends, he is basically immediately in jail for corruption charges and some other charges, I believe. So it's in his best interest to keep the Hamas war going, to keep, to stoke another war. He honestly is insane and willing to drag us into a potential hot war with Iran to save his own ass. Because as long as these wars continue, the dude is pretty much safe from prosecution. Because he can run on we're in wartime, we can deal with that after the wartime. I'll answer for, what you think I did, but right now we just have to keep me in power because we're at war. And so if he can drag on the war until, he's no spring chicken. So if he can drag on the war for a long time, then it buys him more and more time. And here we are. Assassinated in the Iranian capital Tehran on the 31st of July, an attack that drew threats of revenge by Iran and against Israel. Iran has blamed Israel for the killing, but Israel has not claimed responsibility. We all know it was Israel. Haniya's assassination and the killing of senior military commander of the Iran-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah, Fuad Shakir, by Israel in a strike on Beirut have fueled concerns the conflict in Gaza could turn into a wider Middle East war. That's what they want. It comes as Hamas appeared to push back against resuming ceasefire negotiations. So what they're pushing back on is Hamas wants a permanent ceasefire. The only thing that Netanyahu has even tangentially kind of alluded that he might agree to is a temporary ceasefire, probably because he's going to use that temporary ceasefire to get all the hostages, which would be a good thing, of course. I don't want hostages to be harmed or spend another day in captivity. However, it's almost a guarantee that as soon as he gets those hostages back, it's going to be full steam ahead with the demolition of Gaza, to continue. And so Hamas is like, no, we need a guarantee of a full and permanent ceasefire. And Netanyahu's like, nah, can't do that. Of course, almost every article that you're going to read is just talking about how Hamas is not agreeing to a ceasefire. Even they're not going to give you the nuance and the distinction of they want a better ceasefire, and that's why they're not going to agree, because they know that it's probably sealing their own fate. They might get like a 1 or 2 week reprieve, then give up the hostages, which is one of their only leverages, even if I think that it's horrific. And obviously, I don't agree with the taking of hostages, but looking at it from their strategic perspective, one of their main and only leverages. And then as soon as they give that up, they're going to just be completely bulldozed by Israel. And so, now we have them ratcheting up tensions with Iran. On Friday, the leaders of U.S., Egypt, and Qatar called on Israel and Hamas to restart talks to finalize a ceasefire and hostage release deal by August 15th. I'm curious what that is about. I'll register later. No, I won't. Netanyahu's administration has been accused of repeatedly sabotaging ceasefire talks. Wow, okay. Good for you, Guardian, to actually say that, like, he's the one mainly sabotaging these efforts. It's also gross reading about Israeli airstrikes on civilians. Hamas said it has shown flexibility throughout the negotiating process, but that Israeli actions indicated that it was not serious about pursuing a ceasefire agreement. No, I mean, if you don't even have to read the tea leaves. It's just pretty fucking out in the open that they don't want an actual ceasefire. They're just gonna like smile and be like, yeah, totally, ceasefire. And then as soon as they get what they want, which is, the hostages, which would remove any, political baggage, basically, they're going to just execute Order 66 on Gaza. Over the weekend, thousands of people fled the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis after the Israeli military warned of a new operation to flush out Hamas militants that it says have regrouped there. Khan Yunis suffered widespread destruction during the IDF's months-long battle to take the city at the beginning of the year. Biden laid out a three-phase ceasefire proposal in an address on May 31st. Washington and regional mediators have since tried arranging the Gaza ceasefire for hostages deal, but have run into repeated obstacles. And that obstacle being that Hamas, probably rightfully so, does not trust that Israel is going to uphold their end of the agreement. And the agreement, in their eyes, needs to be a permanent ceasefire, which would be wild for its, they try to make the case that it's because, how could you have a terrorist militia like Hamas living right on your border? Of course, they need to be eradicated. So a permanent ceasefire doesn't make any sense. That's their, putting on my Israeli PR hat. But if you are a normal human being with a conscience, it's pretty hard to argue against the complete seizure of the killing of civilians. It's wild. Like they never fail to make us look like the assholes that we are, because we are the assholes for supporting this. and leave it to Israel to make motherfucking Iran look like the sensible ones. You know, as long as you're not a completely jingoistic, brainwashed moron, you know, or just a complete Israel sycophant defending them no matter what they do. You look at this and you're like, wow, that's pretty wild that, you know, we're going to support a country that just went and struck in this country's capital and killed the Hamas leader, and then struck in Beirut, and then have the audacity to be like, oh yeah, but please, you know, let's have some restraint here. It's like, well, what about the fucking restraint when you blew up a building in my nation's capital? So we look like the asshole for supporting the damn country that perpetrated that. And then instead of, you know, putting our thumb on the scale and being like, hey, we have a lot of leverage over you, Israel, you need to tone it the fuck down. We're like, all right, here we go. Here's our fucking aircraft carriers. Here's our planes. Here's a missile. What is it? A guided missile submarine. Here you go. Looks like we're ratcheting up tensions. Looks like we might go to war with Iran, which is what a lot of people in the State Department have wanted for a long time. It's just wild. It's such a clear picture of exactly what we are, which is empire that backs some of the worst actors in the world and is willing to overextend ourselves militarily in order to do it. It's just such a sign of a declining nation, and it's depressing as hell, because all of these resources and all of these, you know, this money could be spent back home, not potentially causing World War III and helping the people who actually desperately need help in this country. What a wild time to be alive. And, you know, I don't think a lot of people want to go to war with Iran. And I know that a lot of the soldiers are like, why are you doing this when we could have diplomacy and prevent this? And I'm 27, 28, so I'm probably past draft age, but I'm not fucking going to war for these cretins. Fuck them. I don't give a shit. Voluntarily or involuntarily.